Hey everyone, welcome back again to Joel Richardson's studio in Kansas City. I found Marco's coffee mug here, so I'm just having a sip or two. We're carrying on through the Difficult Things series. This is session 20, and last week we went through the metal forged in secret, and I believe the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, 6, and 7 gives us keys to how we can invite the hand of the Lord to forge and fashion an armor and give us a fortitude on the inside that guards us from what John calls the lust of the flesh, the lust of this world, and the pride of life. Or the writer of Hebrews says, sin which so easily ensnares, so easily entangles you. How do you avoid it and sidestep it? How do you become, I don't know how else to say it, like fortified against it? How do you have the strength to resist the appetite that is in you in this present evil age and be conformed into the image of the one who overcame all temptation and never gave himself over to sin and lived in obedience to the Father at all times? The Sermon on the Mount is a nice little, it's like a what do you call it in school? Like a cheat sheet into the forensic scan of what it is to be a human. And in a way, it's so simple, it's so simple, but it's also really confrontational. So there's more to the Sermon on the Mount, but in general, give, pray, fast. Not in a way that other people need to see it for you to feel valid, but because it pushes you into the secret place. And Jesus says repeatedly, your Father is in the secret place, and he who sees in the secret place will reward you openly. You seek first the kingdom. You commit the allegiances and affections of your heart completely to him, and he will roll up his sleeves and show himself strong on your behalf. Which is great, right? But also painful, because it hurts to get crucified. I heard a young man say recently, there was a few of us sitting around the dinner table, and he said, it's hard to say no to yourself. And we all just started laughing. We were like, that's it. That's that's the sermon. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do, and the Lord knows that. And so when you are giving yourself to something that to a fight that's difficult to win and impossible to win on your own, you need the Lord to do it. He loves to enter that fight with you, or the way that Paul puts it. We talked about this in the last session. I think it's 2 Corinthians 12. The Lord loves to redeem your weaknesses and redeem your own insufficiencies and show himself strong on your behalf in that way. So, if you've got a thorn in your side, don't make agreement with the thorn and make it part of your identity and who you are. But the Lord loves to go, I'm a lot bigger than that thorn. Watch me work here. And one day, there will be no thorns. Thank God. So, anyway, we'll pick up in this session. I'm calling this the Apocalyptic Constitution of the Kingdom because, so you use a word like apocalyptic and people can be a little bit like, I just mean, the apocalypse, and you see the word is the revelation of Jesus Christ, the apocalypse of Jesus Christ in Revelation 1, verse 1. But obviously it has an eschatological undertone to it in the way that we use it, at least in our colloquial speak. And the thing about the Sermon on the Mount, or these decisions to seek first the kingdom in the secret place, pushes you into apocalyptic hope and expectation, right? That the Lord will come on the clouds in power and glory as only he can, with his reward, as he promises to do, and make every wrong thing right and bring you to the day where you don't have a thorn in your side anymore. And you don't have to fight the fight anymore because you are resurrected. You're fully brought into the fullness of his intentions for you since before the foundations of the world. And the fight is over. That'll be such a cool day. You can't even fathom like the freedom that you'll feel from everything that ensnares you now, or all of the relationships. I was talking to somebody recently, and I said, "What are you looking forward to most in the millennium after the Lord returns?" And I'm thinking I'm thinking of whatever prophecies or passages, this is a really he's a Bible teacher I respect a lot, and he just so simply answered it. He starts kind of laughing. He goes, "Gosh, I just am really looking forward to all of us getting along." that's it. That this thing in us that bumps into each other, bumps into ourselves, it'll be gone in that day. And so when you read what can almost seem foolish in the Lord's prescription for life in this age, to forge the metal, to be strong enough to resist sin, and guard you from all of these things that ensnare and entangle, pray, fast, give, walk in meekness, poverty of spirit, blessed are those who grieve, because you will be comforted. Well, when are you going to be comforted? You'll be comforted when the Lord comes. He is the comforter now. The Holy Spirit is the comforter now, but there is an ultimate comfort coming. And that is why I believe that this is an apocalyptic constitution of the kingdom, because it pushes you to the day the Lord makes all the wrong things right, and you can live in agreement with that jurisdiction now, which is a wise thing to do for a number of reasons, but one of which is you don't want your life to be one of the crooked things that he has to make right. Do you know what I mean? Just do it now. Just submit to it now. So anyway, Matthew 5, 6, 7 is what we call the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus presses us into and encourages us and commands us to obey in the hidden places. And so in chapter 5, verses 2 through 16, it's the Beatitudes. He describes a disposition and what I believe it looks like to look like Jesus. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. You can go through those verses. And then chapter 5, verses 21 to 48, he hits your aggravations, your affections, your allegiances, managing your emotions and conflicts, managing your thoughts and your fantasies and your thought life, cultivating your integrity in your oaths and your words and your speech, that there would be no falsehood in you, and choosing meekness in wars and conflicts. He hits your stewardship. Stewardship, and then keys to a healthy interior life in prayer and fasting. But I think stewardship is also a key to a healthy interior life, because it keeps you free from the love of money and being mastered by money. If you give generously, we all have moments in our life. I think we've all had moments, especially in our youth and when we're young in the Lord and we're trying to live by faith. You don't just give generously, you give recklessly. Like you give away the money you were going to spend on your power bill, and then you're like, oh gosh, you have bills to pay your bills. But be the master of your money so that your money's not the master over you. And submit your money to your master. And trust that he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and he will take care of you.
Hey guys, I trust that you're enjoying the teaching. Wanted to interrupt very briefly just to extend the following invitation. If you've benefited from, if you've been edified by the teaching that we share with you all, we're asking you to prayerfully consider becoming a regular $5 a month supporter. The foundation for everything that we do here at Frontier Alliance International is to lay foundations where there are none. If you resonate, if you connect with this goal of seeing the workers who are on the ground cared for, funded, provided for, in order that they can continue to share the good news, to make disciples, to spread this MARANATHA message to the ends of the earth, then again, we're asking you to prayerfully consider becoming a regular supporter. If you're already a supporter, thank you so much. Again, if you're not, we just ask you to pray about it. The links to give are either going to be at the bottom of the video or in the app. We'll make sure that they're available. FAImission.org. Again, thank you so much. Back to the teaching.
So that's a key to a healthy interior life. It helps forge that metal that safeguards you from sin, that pushes sin out from your inside, like it's like extracting a cancerous tumor. Prayer and fasting, same thing. Prayer and forgiveness, it battles and confronts your anxiety and your worry, and rather than your anxiety and your worry running the train of thought that goes around and around and around the track of your thought life, your conversation with your Father and hearing your Father speak to you can govern that train of thought. But I believe, when I read what we're calling the Sermon on the Mount, I believe it's like a New Testament mirror of Psalm 37. So I'm just going to kind of jog over some passages related to Psalm 37. We know there's an appointed end of evildoers. Do not fret, don't be anxious, don't worry because of evildoers. Don't envy people who are not obeying the Lord but seem to be prospering, because all flesh is grass and their day is numbered. And actually, this should move you with mercy to bear witness of the gospel of the kingdom to them, so that they're brought into this family and inheritance that will endure forever. But there is an appointed end of evil, and there's an appointed end of evildoers. There's the triumph of the righteous. These are just themes that you can read. It's not like I was going to do like this verse and this verse and this verse, but it's just something that David kind of mows in and out of. The appointed end of evil and evildoers, the triumph of the righteous and the vindication of a righteous lifestyle, the vindication of, following an ethical constitution that only makes sense if there's an age after this one that is governed differently than this one is. And thankfully there are ages to come, plural ages, Ephesians 2. Numbered days, but an immortal inheritance. The Lord knows the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. They shall not be ashamed in the evil time. They shall not be ashamed in the day of the Lord. They shall not be ashamed when all the books are opened. And in the days of famine they shall be satisfied. When things are hard in this age, when it looks as though the Lord is aloof and disengaged, I was going to quote this passage, but it's next to my notes. It's in the same psalm. There's friendship and fidelity, friendship with the Lord and fidelity to the Lord, and a friendship from the Lord, and the Lord is faithful to you. Verse 23 says, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and the Lord delights in the steps of a good man. He delights in his way. Though the good man falls, the righteous, the one who's given to the Lord, this isn't your behavior that makes you righteous, it's the blood of the Lamb. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down. Life is hard. You might trip, stumble. The Lord will uphold you and carry you to the finish line. That's the only way we win this race, but you have to stay in the race. He says, this is what I was going to quote, verse 25. David says, I've been young. I was young before. I am not anymore. He says, I'm an old man. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken. I have seen all of this vindicated, and the Lord's been faithful to his word. His descendants are blessed, but the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord, and he is their strength in the time of trouble. This is jumping down. Verse 40, and the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. And then there are rewards in the resurrection, which is wild. My friend and I talk about this a lot. She's like, the Lord is my reward. Why don't you like ice cream from Jesus? And I was like, yes, totally. I hear you. But also, if he's bringing ice cream, don't you want some? I do. Which is a really simple, kind of stupid way to put it. But, I would just encourage you. We're going to kind of just glance over some passages here, but it's so woven, not just throughout the Gospels and the Epistles and Revelation, but from like Genesis to Revelation, it's all over. If you obey the Lord, he's got this long-term game in mind, and the win is in the ages to come. The ultimate win is in the ages to come. So you can go through the 7 letters in Revelation. All of the 7 letters have some kind of incentive. I will reward you with the crown of life, or hidden manna and a white stone and a new name, or the morning star, power over nations. Your name being in the book of life and not being blotted out, a confession of your name from the Son to the Father before all the angels. Revelation 3:12, he who overcomes, I'll make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. And I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem. I'll write on him my new name. To him who overcomes, I will grant to sit with me on my throne. We quoted this last week, Hebrews 6:10. God is not unjust to forget your work and labor of love that you've shown towards his name. He remembers everything. He writes everything down. He'll remember it forever. Your Father is in the secret place, and he sees in the secret place in every little movement of your heart. This is that, the pearls of the necklace in the Song of Solomon. With one little link of your necklace, one little movement of your will towards him, he sees it, and he's undone by it. And he writes it down, and he remembers it forever, and he rewards you for it. This is the age when it's gosh, what was that game? Like Mario, when you're a kid and you have all the coins on the screen, you just want to plunder like all of the coins. This age is an opportunity to plunder all of the coins that you cash in the ages to come. Not because the Lord is, I don't know, Buddha or karma or whatever, but it's relational. And you have a good dad who is delighted to reward you in the ages to come. I think of Ephesians 2, and he says, oh, hang on. I don't want to... Let me just look it up really quickly because the language is stunning. Ephesians 2. You know this. You're familiar with this. You were dead in trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind. But God, verse 4, but God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you've been saved, and raised us up with him and seated us with him in the heavenly places. This is verse 7. So that in the coming ages, plural, he might show the immeasurable riches of his grace in kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you've been saved through faith. It's not your own doing, it's the gift of God. It's not a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them. The incredible thing, one of the things I really appreciate about Jesus is that the message of obedience is not given to us in a manipulative way. Like, obey Jesus because he died for you, and the least you can do is obey him, right? That's like, you're already saved. He's already done it. It's a gift. He did it for you because that's just who he is. He intercedes, he advocates, he saves. All of the commands or encouragements to obey him in this age, which he knows and acknowledges as a difficult thing to do. And I love, too, Hebrews says we don't have a great high priest who's unsympathetic or who doesn't understand the struggle, because he took on flesh and walked through the struggle with us and was tempted in every way that you have and will ever be tempted. And he lived in fidelity to the word of the Lord. So he gets it, and he can empathize with you as a brother. And all of the encouragement to walk that road with him isn't well, he did it for you, so you need to do it for him. It's, hey, he did it for you, and he's doing it with you, and if you trust him and follow him, he'll reward you in the ages to come. There's like, I don't know how else to say it, ice cream. I don't know what it is. And I mean this in a real way in my own life. If I'm having like a discouraging day, I don't do this every time, but there's something about ice cream that's like childlike, and I just go get an ice cream cone and talk to my father. And I just think it's like physiologically impossible to be angry or in a bad mood when you're eating ice cream. So that's my correlation. He says in Revelation 22, behold, I'm coming quickly, and my reward is with me to give to everyone according to his work. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me. He is the one who's taking the initiative to bring rewards. So if all we ever got was to be with Jesus forever, that's more than enough. It's more than anything, it's above or beyond anything we could ask or imagine. And he is bringing rewards. So, ice cream with Jesus.
We want to interrupt the MARANATHA Global Bible Study for 1 minute to say this. Our primary burden as an organization is not teaching the Bible to people who have the Bible. Our primary burden as a spiritual family is to declare the name among those who've never heard the name. Romans 15 is our driving passion as an organization to not build on another man's foundation and to lay foundations where there are none. If this is something that resonates with you, if you care about the Great Commission, if you care about the MARANATHA message taking root where it's never been declared before, I want to ask you to consider becoming a financial supporter of FAI Studios at a monthly level. We're doing this thing until the sky splits, and we're committed to laboring on frontier fields where there are no foundations and where there are no workers. And this is a very costly task, and we need your help if you care about this. So if you do, click on the link below or go to faistudios.org, or you can give through the FAI app as well, safely and securely. Thanks for watching this, guys. Now back to the teaching.
In Matthew 19, this is on the heels of it's like all but impossible for a rich man to enter the kingdom thing, threading a camel through the eye of the needle because of the money master over your heart issue. And then in verse 27, Matthew 19:27, then Peter answers and says, well, I mean, look, man, like we left everything and followed you, so what do we get? And Jesus doesn't go, God, you were like really selfish and narrow-minded and stop being stupid. He goes, Peter, listen to me. I'm telling you, in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, all you who followed me, he's speaking to the apostles here. He says, you're also going to sit on 12 thrones, probably with the exception of Judas Iscariot, but he didn't reveal that part of the story to them yet. Judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And he says, and this is where it turns to you and me. Everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or mother or father, wife, children, or lands for my name's sake will receive 100-fold and inherit eternal life. But many are first will be last, the last will be first. He sees everything. Anything that obedience costs you in this age, you're not going to be at a loss forever. And I think there's going to be a point where we're like, we forget about stuff that we did or things we gave up, or we forget about whatever. We're finite. We forget about a lot of things. He doesn't. He's infinite, and he remembers everything. And he'll reward you for stuff that you either forgot about or you didn't even realize it mattered, but it mattered to him, and he'll reward you for it 100-fold. And he has a very gracious accounting system. So, you've probably heard me quote, 1 Corinthians 3 before. This is where Paul's saying, look, build wisely. If anyone, we'll start in verse 11. For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus. But if anyone lays on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, your work will become clear, because the day of the Lord's going to declare it, because it's going to test and reveal everything by fire and reveal what sort it is. It'll expose the sort of it. And this is, where it becomes paramount that the Lord doesn't see as man sees. He sees your interior life, your interior motivations. So you might pray, fast, give, whatever, but you do it to make yourself feel good, to stroke your own ego, or you do it in a way that other people can applaud you for it. But if you do it that's wood, hay, stubble. But if you do it in the secret place before the Lord, even if somehow, whatever, if other people find out about it, as long as you're not trumpeting your own name, that's gold, precious stones. If anyone's work which he has built on it endures the fire, he will receive a reward. And if anyone's work is yet burned, he will suffer loss. But he himself will be saved, yet as though through fire. So it's not a salvific issue. He saved you. But God. You were dead in trespasses, but God. And then there's extra stuff, right? And he'll reward you for it. He'll reward you for the difficulty of life in this age and fighting the lust of the flesh and the lust of this life and the pride of life, the lust of the world, the pride of life. And then 1 Corinthians 4, this is basically, a breath after this 1 Corinthians 3 thing I just read, but chapter 4, verse 1, he says, let a man so consider us as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. But with me, he says, it's a very small thing if you judge me or a human court judges me. In fact, I don't even judge myself. This is Paul. He goes, I appreciate your concern, but I don't actually care what your narrative of my life is. For I know nothing. He goes, I know of nothing against myself, but that doesn't mean I'm justified. Like Psalm 139, Lord, search me and know me and try my anxieties and test if there's any wicked way in me and expose me now. Or at Bickle will say, shock me now. Don't shock me then in that day. Turn the lights on and all of it now. And praying, fasting, giving. The Sermon on the Mount presses you into turning on the light switches. Because it just confronts your interior in very practical ways. So verse 4, Paul's saying, I'm not like, You can judge me. I don't really care. And he's like, but also, it's not that I'm really propping myself up. I have to lean on the Lord because only the Lord knows. Only the Lord sees on a forensic level. Therefore, verse 5, judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who will both, like, walk with grace for yourself and for each other until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the hidden things of darkness and reveal the counsels of hearts, which I think is going to be a really interesting thing, especially for those of us who've lived in the age of like Twitter and social media and hashtag cancel culture or whatever it is, because we have all these narratives that we stir up, we build up. And, Jeff has told me a number of times, he's like, you could be a really, really meticulous recorder and a really horrible interpreter because you don't see as the Lord sees, you see as man sees. And the Lord sees everything, he records everything, and he interprets everything perfectly. So I read this, I'm like, oh God. But then, the back half of verse 5, he says, then each one's praise will come from God because he comes with his reward. And he has a very gracious accounting system. So we've got a handful of sessions left in this series. And as we come in for a landing and we get into some of the practical things that Scripture gives us, I said this in the last session, I think, but I'll say it again. It's not that the Lord cares, like doing difficult things and dying without regret may or may not have bearing on your address or where you get mail or where you wake up in the morning or where you go to bed at night. Sometimes it does. I think a lot of times it really doesn't. Obeying the Lord may or may not have bearing on your address. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But no matter where you are, it's your interior life that he's after. It's your thought life. It's the affections of your heart. And we can go, do, and be a lot of things, but if we don't have tenderness in our heart towards the Lord and our eyes on his coming and our expectation for his rule and reign and restoration of all things, then, maybe we're successful at things that don't matter. And the difficult things that we want to do can actually be really simple and accessible wherever you are. So be encouraged because your Father is in the secret place and he sees everything in the secret place. And one day, when he exposes everything, you who cling to the Lord and your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life will actually receive praise from the Lord and encouragement and acknowledgement and reward from your Father. Maranatha.